real stories of werewolves, of Dogman history, from your emails, illustrated and animated with the democratizing magic of machine learning AI. Welcome to Scary Stories.
Recently, one of our channel members, Jason Regina, sent me 2 interesting true narratives from his own life. It took me some time to get visuals out of Midjourney to illustrate it, but Jason was okay with the approach I was able to achieve, and I soon got started adapting his emails into this episode here. I have expanded on the original emails slightly, but not in ways that change any of the details. In fact, I tried to add a little information wherever it seemed like it might make the stories easier to understand. I'd like to thank Jason up front, not only for these creepy, real cryptid experiences, but also for letting us use his name, something we don't get to do often on this channel for obvious reasons. We'll thank Jason again at the end because he's also today's executive producer. In addition, I'd like to mention that all this week through July 4th, we're going to be including a link in the description to a great book called United States of Cryptids. If you're one of the lucky few who can still afford gasoline right now, that book gives you a long list of haunted and cryptid-infested places that you can use that gasoline to drive to. We've got a link in the description where you can order a copy of that, and this channel gets a small commission if you do. But more about that later. Right now, let's dive into these brand new, true listener stories. The Jason Regina Cryptid Cases, aka Werewolf Chased Us Back to Our Car. Dear Scary Stories, I have 2 cryptid stories to share, and I don't know if they were both Dogman or what, but they were both big and scary. I got a better look at the second one, who appeared to have a longer snout and might probably have been a Dogman. I'm going to tell them in chronological order, beginning with the first incident, which happened in June 1998 at Beams Rock in Lynn Run State Park, to the southeast of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. A few of my friends and I were in our early 20s, and in those days I guess we were still a bunch of hippies, to be honest. We all like to go out into the mountains and smoke a little contraband, and have a fire to roast moon pies and just enjoy the late afternoon, early evening, before heading back to the human world of the young adult, being bossed around and having to be productive and grown up. One night we had a fire up on top of the rock over there, and we'd been smoking and hanging out, feeling loose and free and eternal, and that way you can only feel when you're that age. I wasn't alone when this happened. My buddy James was there, Adam was there, Adam's girlfriend, and then me. That makes 4. We were just sort of finishing up our hanging out, because it was getting dark and we had a quarter mile to walk in the deep woods before we could even get back to our car and leave the area. We had been having fun and probably had let it go a little too long, but we needed a break. It had been an impromptu last-minute get-together, and we weren't as fully prepared as we might have been. I remember we had to put the fire out by us guys taking turns peeing on it. Yeah, we were stupid and had forgotten to bring any water. I suppose we could have used the beer if we hadn't sucked those cans all bone dry already. As we were gathering our things, we heard a very heavy-footed, 2-legged individual coming through the woods quickly toward us, and all of a sudden, all joking around stopped. We went silent, and I noticed the woods had quieted down around us too. Everything had grown quiet, other than the thuds those footsteps were making as they approached us. Even in the dark, without ever seeing him, we could tell that this sucker was big, because we could feel the thuds through our feet. And we were standing out on the rock, not on the soft ground I am guessing he was walking on. We started yelling, "Hello," and "Who's there?" and things of that nature. Adam was standing at the beginning of the trail, having just stepped off the rocks, and he was yelling, "Hey, a-hole, who's there?" quite loudly. Moments later, a boulder as big as a basketball hit the rocks next to Adam. That's when I think we all straightened up in 1 second and came to complete attention. Adam had the hottest temper in our group, and that rock hadn't missed him by much. He started yelling even louder, saying, "Hey, MFer, what are you doing?" Then whiz, bang, another melon-sized rock hit the ground right near Adam, making us all jump. At this point, me and James were more than ready to start our hike back to the car. And if I recall correctly, the young lady had no interest in sticking around either. That pretty much only left Adam, who for some reason wanted to pick a fight with a big, heavy-footed guy who threw Nolan Ryan fastballs with rocks bigger than his head. We were trying to get at him to just leave, but he was mad and trying to be tough like always. By this time it really was almost dark and I was the only one with any degree of night vision. I figured that made me temporarily in charge, so I said it outright. Number 1, this isn't normal. Number 2, we need to go. And that's when we saw it. Or at least I saw it. I could see its silhouette against the deep blue darkening sky as it picked another rock up and flung it in our direction. I dove for cover while that man thing up there roared, sounding like a scream and a roaring howl mixed into one. So that was definitely not just a big man up there who was angry at us. The silhouette looked huge, hairy, and like an animal on 2 legs. And at that time the only thing we knew to compare it to was Bigfoot. I don't know what it was, other than large and hairy. I didn't see much more because after it roared we ran for the car, running headlong down the trail with only the moon and stars to guide us. We could hear it chasing after us, which kept our legs and adrenaline pumping the entire run. That hairy man kept pace, coming from behind growling and thudding after us. It seemed glad we were scared, and it wanted to keep us that way. As horrifying as this was, I wonder if it could have been worse. It mostly seemed to want us to go away more than it wanted to hurt us. But if one of us had tripped and fallen or something like that, would the creature have backed off? Or would that member of our group have remained in those woods with that beast man? Thankfully, we won't ever know the answer to that question because we all did make it back to the car. When we finally broke out of the trees 15 minutes later and jumped into the car, it screamed at us again while we peeled out of there. I didn't notice it coming out of the tree line. It seemed satisfied to see us driving away. I was so freaked out by this that I never returned to Beams Rock. At least not at anywhere near nighttime. And I don't think any of the others ever did again either.
Find that link in the description, honey.
Before we jump back into Jason Regina's narrative here, I feel for some reason, I'm not sure why, that I should point out that this next series of events happened right near a U.S. Army Corps of Engineer base in the woods by this water system. I don't really know why. I wonder if that had something to do with this, but I just wanted to toss that out there. Now let's jump ahead some years and rejoin this episode's executive producer Jason Regina as he tells us about his second and most recent cryptid encounter, which we'll call the Terror in Tionesta, PA. Dear Scary Stories NYC. The second story happened in July 2018 in Tionesta, PA, in the Allegheny State Park. My buddy Scott and I had planned a camping fishing trip for months, and we had rented the furthest out primitive camping spot in Tionesta Rec area. This place is located in Allegheny State Park, which is a huge forest in the northwest of PA. We gathered all our supplies and drove to a basic boat pier 4 miles upriver from our camping spot. Then we loaded the boat into the water with all our gear aboard, and off we went. Initially we were heading slowly downriver, fishing as we went. I remember catching 2 nice-sized bass and a bunch of bluegill. It took us nearly 3 hours to get back to our campsite that way, because we spent the entire day going very slow downriver fishing, enjoying the day and BSing. It was a sunny day with perfect weather, and we had an extremely relaxing and fun time. When we finally got back to our camping spot, we landed ashore and tied our boat off. While doing this, it dawned on us that the only way to get to this campsite we were at was to boat in. That meant we should have total privacy. It should have meant that we were on our own, which we totally loved thinking we were. It meant that we had the whole area to fish in and explore, as if it were our own. Or at least we thought it meant that. So we unloaded the boat, setting our camp up in about 45 minutes, making a fire and putting a pot of coffee on. We drank coffee and nothing intoxicating because Scott by those days was very straight edge. That means he didn't drink or smoke any. This was fine with me because honestly, I wasn't partying much anymore at that time in my life. We set up the pots and pans we had for cooking and made 2 beef strips and peppers and potatoes to grill on the fire. Then Scott and I prepared to do a little night fishing as dinner cooked, setting up our leads and baits so we could be as ready as possible. We took fishing pretty seriously, and we wanted to be prepared whenever we could be. After dinner, we explored our general area, hiking nearly a mile around our campsite, noticing that it was weirdly quiet. I mean, there was very little animal chatter or movement, and the insect life seemed very quieted down as well. Was it possible that Scott and I had somehow intimidated the local fauna? Or if it wasn't us, why had so much of nature seemed to go into hiding? Once we got back to camp, we 2 scary predators prepared to go back out on the river for some night fishing. We set up a fire to cook some hot dogs as a snack. We might have gone a bit sober, but we still liked our meaty meals. We set out on the river after dark for about 2 hours, trying our luck but only getting 2-foot-long catfish. We decided it was time to turn in, and we landed the boat. As we were tying it off, though, we heard something rummaging around our campsite. Something big. Scott was armed with his .44 and I grabbed the lantern. We walked toward camp, him in front, and me stepping behind Scott. I tried to hold the lantern so he could see, but as we creeped up to the camp from the river, we didn't see any movement. Our cooler was knocked over, but nothing else looked out of place. The thing is, once again, there was that weird total silence. Scott, who had been an outdoorsman his whole life, looked nervous, and that didn't make me feel any more secure, believe me. But we decided to try to stick it out for the night. First job was to get the fire built up, and second was to replace the gas cylinder in the lantern so it could run till the morning. This way our area was lit up a lot. Hoping that would scare any problems off, we tried to go to sleep in the tent. Before sleep, though, Scott showed me how to use his weapon and where the safety was because he was hard to wake up. If there was an animal bold enough to come into our brightly lit camp, he wanted me to be safe. But before we could even get to sleep, as we lay there, something very heavy was circling outside. It wasn't human, because we could hear it breathing and growling now and again. As I started to drift to sleep, we heard a howling roar scream echo across the forest. I bolted awake asking Scott if he heard that. His only reply was,
"Yes, let's go."
We basically packed everything and loaded the boat in 5 minutes, compared to the unload time of 45. We were scared, but we thought we had some more time to get the tent and food. As we went to go back to get those things, though, a huge bipedal fur form was destroying our tent and cooler, roaring like nothing I've ever heard. It wasn't very clear in the darkness, so I couldn't see its head that much other than the slight snout, but it was on 2 legs screaming like crazy. We jumped in the boat and took off as fast as it would go, which was probably like 10 miles an hour. This thing proceeded to chase us upriver, climbing giant hills and steep drops to keep up with our boat. It was smart enough to stay just out of our lantern light, so Scott couldn't get a clear shot at it. We took an hour and a half to get back to the truck, which is record time, because we were flying. Imagine 90 straight minutes of horror. Think about it. You can't slow down or it'll catch up, but keeping your distance also means you can't fire off a clear shot at it. It becomes an endurance test. Who will falter first? Both sides have to be perfect, and the only reason I can tell you this story is because our adrenaline on that night kept us perfect for long enough that we finally had our destination pier in sight. The long-snouted upright beast man followed us, screaming and roaring the whole way, like we'd stolen its cell phone or something. Then suddenly, when we got to within approximately 500 yards of the pier. That screaming mad thing grew silent, and just because it shut up didn't mean it had gone away. We knew that much by then. It was still creepy silent as we got the boat out of that water and sped home, which was a few hours of driving away. I would like to say I felt safe as soon as we started driving, but the truth is, I kept staring around and acting borderline paranoid until we were miles away. Since that day, Scott has refused to talk about any of this, and I can't say I really blame him. However, the more I think about it, I think it narrows down to either a Bigfoot or a Dogman, because those are the only things I've heard of that are like men but larger and hairier. Considering how long the snout was, I don't think it was a Bigfoot. I lean more toward it being a werewolf-type Dogman. In both of my encounters, it was very dark out, and I don't know if I will ever know what exactly it was that we ran into. Even if a Bigfoot or Dogman is someday captured and DNA tested and proven by science to be real, I still won't really know which of them I dealt with on those 2 strange nights. Who knows? Maybe I had one from column A and one from column B. I feel different ways about this on different days, but right now I'm leaning toward the idea that it was a werewolf chased us back to our car. Tonight's episode had 2 true cryptid encounters from Pennsylvania, but you know there are locations where people have run into monsters, ghosts, aliens, and who knows what else all over the United States of America. This cool book, The United States of Cryptids by J.W. Ocker, is a great starter guide to help you find out where your own local cryptids have been sighted, find out which monsters have their own roadside markers, and which ones are still waiting for official recognition. We've got a link to snag this book in the description, and if you use that link, we get a small commission from each sale. But no matter how you get yourself a copy, this book will likely inspire you to get off your butt and go out there looking for monsters. And what could be a more American way to spend the week of July 4th?
If you like the music in this video, you can download it for free at the link in the description.
Two creepy stories of cryptids chasing. Both are true and sent in by Jason. Please join me in thanking Jason Regina not only for contributing these 2 creepy cryptid stories tonight, but also for being tonight's executive producer and making this episode possible in the first place. Jason Regina is a true all-star. He's like that baseball player, you know, the one who can hit and pitch both. All the sports fans are so excited about this guy. What's his name again? Oh yeah, Jason Regina is the Shohei Ohtani of our channel members, so please give thanks to him for his service above and beyond the call of duty. And speaking of duty, here comes a little dogman who smells like... anyway, he's none other than our own international TV spokesmongrel, Henry Lee Dogman. Hank? Thanks, Biggie, and thanks to all of you for watching this far. If you liked it, please click like. If you'd like to see more of our work, please subscribe. And also click that bell icon if you'd like to be notified when we put out a new episode. To become an executive producer, you can donate to us through the thanks button under each of our videos or through our paypal.me/PeterBernard209 page. To receive cool perks like secret uncensored Dogman episodes far too wild to ever run on this channel, you can become a YouTube channel member by clicking the join button. Or join our PayPal subscribers club at peterbernard.com. Joining either at the $3 a month level or above gets you access to our over 25 hours of secret uncensored Dogman stories available nowhere else. Do you have a scary story about Dogman or some other kind of high strangeness that happened to you? Let us know by emailing us at scarystoriesnyc@gmail.com or by leaving us a voicemail message at 804-LA-SCARY. You may need to call back on that one. It cuts off after, I think, 3 minutes. And if you don't want to do any of that stuff, thank you for simply watching to the end. Good night, and have a scary tomorrow.
Come back for more scary stories.